Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, my friends. Don will be with you in just a second. Glad you could join us. My friends, we've got a great fall day here in Kingman. Our predicted apocalyptic rain never materialized, but we did get a good spit and drizzle. It's always helpful out here in this country. And put a bit of a shine on the running hare downtown. We got somebody, we've been talking about public art a little bit on previous programs. We talked with the mural artist, Ray Harvey, and we've talked with some others about the importance of public art. And, well, Don is with us this morning to put a different spin on that. Donald, how are you doing this beautiful morning?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you?
You know, God bless. The funny thing is, I had a pulse this morning, but I'll be damned if I can find it now. That's probably not good. God, you sure keep busy. I just checking out your website, and since we had a chance to visit some time back, my goodness, you have not let any grass grow under your feet at all.
Well, I try to keep busy. It's the best way to stay sane.
I got to write that down. I've been looking for a way to do that. Gosh, I noticed you did some work up in Oldsmar, Florida.
Yes, I did a project in Oldsmar a couple years back. It was a interactive piece that was installed across from the town hall, and it was a huge pair of stainless steel wings, which visitors could interact with by going up and standing in front of them and having a photo taken of them wearing the wings. It was very successful. And the supporting pipes that held up the wings had objects from Oldsmobiles, transmission gears and things like that, as a homage to Ransom Olds, who established the town of Oldsmar.
That's exactly where I was going with this. I just had a conversation with some folks up there in Michigan about Ransom E. Olds and his creation of Oldsmar. So you beat me to it. That's exactly where I was going. I wonder how many people, before you did that sculpture and linked Oldsmobile with public art, I wonder how many people realized that Ransom E. Olds had his hand in that place.
Yeah, very few, I think. And I mean, I didn't know it myself until I started to research the project.
Yes. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about that you have a Route 66 connection too.
Yeah, that was a very serendipitous project. It was started when I was a artist in residence in Kingman, and I was doing things in the studio, and I got to know some people in the town, most notably Scott Dunton, and I sort of had an ambition to make a large sculpture that could be installed next to. I think Scott owned the area. It was a parking area next to the old hotel, and I got the idea of putting a sculpture there. So I presented my ideas to the mayor, and he drafted a letter that I presented to the dean of the college, the Mojave Community College, to work in their welding facilities to construct the sculpture. And it all came together. It was kind of a cosmic confluence of people and ideas. And there was a gentleman, I forget his name, but he gave me carte blanche to go into the scrapyard just outside of Kingman to collect materials. And that was critical because I went there almost every day with my pickup truck and plumbed the depths of the scrap, which became the material that the running hare was constructed out of.
You know, folks, if you want to see some of the diverse work that Don has created, check out his website. It's donsculpture.com/public art. Take a look at that, and I'm just impressed how you can recycle. I think is the best way to put it. This is the ultimate expression of recycling. I just really have always been impressed with your work.
Thank you. Well, recycling in my artwork started as kind of a necessity as a young artist starting out. Materials were expensive, and basically junk was available. So I did a lot of scavenging, and I sort of created a style using cast-off objects. But I've branched out, and I use a lot of stainless steel in my public work because it's impervious to weathering basically, and it does well in climates like Florida and California, where there's a lot of moisture and salt air that is corrosive to any other metals. Things do much better in Kingman. I mean, the hare has held up beautifully.
It has. And, you know, we're quite proud of that. We've got a lot of things going on here. The public art in Kingman is really impressive. And we had a few murals before you did the running hare, but now it's taken on a whole different dynamic. And Kingman Main Street included the running hare in the Kingman Tours project. That's www.kingman.tours. One of the things that always frustrated me was that your beautiful running hare was there, and there was no description about the artist or what it was. And so when they approached me about helping put that project together, that was one of the first things I said. It's got to be more than just historic site descriptions. We've got to talk about the artwork, and why it was created and who created it. So I was really glad that we got to include you in that, because it's really important to have the story behind this, the story of the creator and the creation.
Yeah, well, we originally had some kind of a plaque, but I don't think it wore well. It fell off, or I don't know, somebody took it off. But I feel very gratified that there's a permanent plaque there that explains it.
Yeah, what we did was a QR code. Of course, I had talked to you on that and used some of the material you had provided, but it's a QR code based narrated self-guided tour. And the website is set up as a virtual tour. That way, if you're, like, say, incarcerated somewhere and you have internet access, you can still get a tour of Kingman. We've got, you'd be really impressed. We've got internationally acclaimed sculptress J.Ann Butler has added a sculpture here. We've got J.C. Amberlin, who was a illustrator, children's book illustrator, and wildlife book illustrator. Has done some mural work here. It's kind of becoming kind of an arts community. Kind of impressive.
Yeah,
And
well, that's really always been gone hand in hand with the gentrification and the modernization of cities and towns, is the growth of the art scene. And it's great to be a part of the renaissance of the Kingman art scene. The running hare, I'm extremely proud of that piece. It was, like I said, it was born out of a real motivation to create art and not a commercial one.
Yeah.
I remember his name was Ken Watkins. He's the guy who gave me access to his scrapyard. And like I said, Scott Dunton was a big help too.
Yes.
He lent a lot of equipment to move it, because I mean that piece is 12 feet tall. It weighs in excess of 800 pounds. And another thing, interesting thing about it was that I created it in the summer in Kingman, and we know it's hot. And I did it in an outdoor studio at the Mojave Community College. And we set up a 10 by 10 tent awning over us so we could work in the heat of the day. And there was a guy named Jerry Shook. I don't know if he's still around, but they called him Papa Smurf, and he was an old welder, a commercial welder, and he helped me weld the piece. And he obviously did a great job because it's holding up beautifully.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Yeah. Scott was, I always joked, I had worked with Scott Dutton for many years. His family has continuing the tradition now that he's passed, a continuing 100-year tradition of family association with Route 66. But I always joke that every community needs a Scott Dutton, and I feel sorry for any town that has two. Because boy, he could get things done, but not always the way they normally should be. Hey,
Well, he was a great ally. I mean,
yes,
as a visiting artist who just came to the town, I mean, I had very little contact and even less power, if you will. And Scott was a great facilitator. I mean, he was a good friend. I would ask him for something and he would get it done. And it was a great help in getting that artwork completed.
I worked with Scott. Well, I knew his father pretty well when I was the Republican committeeman for the district here, Roy Dutton. But Scott and I established the Route 66 Association of Kingman back in '94. But as an example of what I mean by everybody needs a Scott, but you don't need two, the corner of 4th and Andy Devine, Route 66, where the running hare stands, was a vacant lot with a collapsed building.
Yeah.
And the owners and the city had been going back and forth for years about cleaning up that corner. And I was in Scott's office one day and he says, I'm sick of driving by that corner. So he called up some friends at some people he knew at Desert Construction. He beat up on them a little bit and basically ended up, you pay half, I'll pay half to clean up the corner. And then he called the city manager and he said, tomorrow morning, we're cleaning up the corner of 4th and Andy Devine. We don't have permits. If that's a problem, you know where I'm at. Yeah. So everybody.
Yeah, that's the way Scott did things.
Yes. Hey, one of your projects, when I was going through your website, you have such a diverse style with your art. And one of them was your treasure chest. I found now that was really different and fascinating.
Yeah, it was different and fascinating to me too when I saw that they were calling for a sculpture to be placed on the deck of a sunken ship. So I was very enthusiastic about applying for that opportunity, and fortunately, I received the commission. And I thought of like what in a childlike way, like what would you want to come across more than a treasure chest full of gold ingots and doubloons. And so that's what I created in a grand scale. It was a difficult fabrication process because I had to. Um, uh, I was limited by a lot of environmental factors. Like it had to be um, approved, the metals, the finishes, everything had to be approved for being placed in the ocean, which of course, is a good thing. There's you can't put any lead paint or, other toxic materials. So that was a little bit of a hurdle. Uh, and then, getting it down to the ship, I mean, professional divers did it, but it was a fascinating project. It was on the shoreline in Pompano Beach for a year, so terrestrials could enjoy it as well before it was moved out and sunk on the artificial reef. Shipwreck Park was the location.
You mentioned the childlike thoughts about what the treasure would look like. And I think that's one of the things I find intriguing with your art, your ability to convey childlike thoughts, childlike wonder at things, and bring them to life. And one example I found on your website too that really fits that was the one you did for the Louisiana State University School of Veterinary Medicine. The thought process, the fascinating to build a dog out of dog dishes.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
Well, thank you. That combined my interest in repurposed objects and also my ability to make things permanent by using stainless steel. It combined both of those aspects. And I went to LSU and pitched the idea to the Veterinary School of Medicine, and they were very enthusiastic about it. And when it came to actually making the piece, there's a little bit of a stretch, because when you're creating a concept, you tend to let your thoughts run wild. But then there comes the time when the switch is flipped and you have to actually make it. And then you say, what was I thinking? But that was a bit of a challenge because I had to come up with, I think it was roughly 800 or 900 stainless steel pet food bowls. And there's different grades of stainless steel. Most people aren't aware of it. There's magnetic stainless, which a lot of cutlery and so forth is made from, cutlery is exposed to water, and you'd think that it would be the non-rusting type, but it's actually ferrous. The way you can tell is you have a magnet. I always have a magnet with me. If it sticks to the magnet, it's got ferrous, iron elements in it, and it's not good for sculpture. So I had to check every dog food bowl with a magnet, and a lot of them were rejected. But and also I had to create an armature that these bowls would be welded to, and the armature was somewhat of an anemic dog because the every bowl added at least 3 to 4 inches in depth to it. So, otherwise it would be an overweight dog. So there was a lot of challenges in, moving it and making it stable, but it was a very successful piece, and they love it. They celebrate it. They're always doing promotions on their anniversaries of different events, and I'm really happy that it's well received.
I forwarded. The thing that's fascinating too is like I say, I encourage people to take a look at your art on the website. So much of this public art that's done, what you're trying to do is more. Pablo Picasso style, where and I'm nothing against Pablo Picasso, but his artwork reminds me of how I see the world when I break my glasses. It's just not there. But yours is different. It's real. It's tangible. Yeah, like the butter. Oh, I want to tell you what I did when you and I started talking about doing the program. I started really looking at your website. I'd been a little behind. Kaleidoscope of Monarchs in Riverside, Missouri, dovetailed perfectly with conversations I've had with Jeff Ladd in Illinois, who's trying to get people to put in gardens that attract butterflies because the monarchs are now kind of endangered. And I'm forwarding this to Jeff, and hopefully he wants to talk to the city of Riverside about incorporating a garden to attract monarch butterflies. And that would go so well with your kaleidoscope of monarch sculpture.
Well, the reason that came about was that they're on the monarch migration route, and they have a flyover of monarchs every year. So they wanted to memorialize them, and I did a series, 2 sculptures for them. One I called the Kaleidoscope of Monarchs, which was a whole bunch of stainless steel monarchs in a grouping. And another one was one grand monarch, which was made up of hundreds of small cutout monarch butterfly forms, as though some magical force just brought them together to form a huge monarch. But again, that was a very challenging project. Again, the rift between the idea and the execution was a big one on that, but we made it work.
Well, you always do, and it's I tell you, and the public art, can't say enough about public art, the funding of public art, the display. If it's done right, it is probably one of the greatest catalysts I know of for fostering development of a sense of community pride, and community purpose. And it has a unifying effect. And I that's your work accomplishes that, and it's quite an example.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, is a unifying community effect. I do what's called community engagement in most of my projects, which involves sitting down with members of the community, businessmen, educators, art patrons, artists, and hearing what they have to say. And I did quite an extensive one several sessions in Jacksonville, Florida, for 2 sculptures that I did for underserved communities. And the effect of the community engagement completely changed my original design ideas. I had some design ideas, I scrapped them and used what the community told me as the basis for my new design ideas. So it can be very profound listening to the community and learning about exactly what their needs are and what they're looking for, rather than just relying on your own artistic aesthetics and going in blindly.
Mm-hmm. Was that your winged victory sculpture there?
Yes, the Winged Victory sculpture and the sculpture at the Bob Hayes Community Center. Bob Hayes was just coincidentally a big hero of mine when I was a kid. He was a sprinter, 100-meter dash sprinter in the Olympics, and he was quite famous at the time. But it was a community center, and I called it on the shoulders of legends, and it was a tiered sculpture that had the family unit as the basic foundation of the sculpture on the first level, and then it had athletes, community members, businessmen, and at the top, a triumphant child holding up an eternal flame. And it was a very successful sculpture, I'm happy to say.
I know you work a lot with steel, stainless steel, and metal products. But and folks, you got to see. I'll when I publish this later today, I will also do a blog post on the Jim Hinckley's America website about public art because we've been talking so much about it, and I'll have some screenshots of Don's work on that blog post because, like I say, divorce yourself from the concept that this is going to look like something Pablo Picasso did. It's not. And but you really deviated from working with metal a lot in your dumpster divers. Uh, what I found intriguing on that was blowing up the picture and looking at the stuff that you incorporated into this. That was bizarre.
Yeah, well, that's a technique that I developed that I call midden sculptures. And a midden is an archaeological term for a conglomeration of objects that kind of cement themselves together over time from a particular archaeological time period, like oyster shells that indigenous peoples would throw in a heap, or even it refers to animal middens where they collect things and they become fossilized. So I thought that was a good term because it's kind of a conglomeration, a cacophony of objects that I screwed together. And I actually made quite a few midden sculptures when I was in Kingman working at Art Hub as an artist in residence, because I asked members of the community to bring in stuff that I could make art out of. And the response was quite overwhelming. Like, people invited me to their homes throughout Kingman, and they showed me like basements full of boxes of, I mean, you name it, screws, bolts, hinges, old watches, all kinds of things. And I used them all in my artwork. So it was not only a great way for me to find materials to work with. The people who donated them felt a kinship with the art, and it was a nice situation. In fact, I made some friends that I'm still friendly with today from Kingman, some 10 years later.
I got looking at this dumpster diver and everything from plastic Simpson toys to empty soda pop cans and plastic spoons and hubcaps and just license plates. Yeah, that's that. I got that. I wrote that term down. I'm surprised I wasn't familiar with that because I've always been kind of interested in archaeology. But thank you. My pa said it's always better to fill your head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. And he also used to tell me if a man ain't careful, he learns something new every day. Well, I went and learned something, and it's not even 8 o'clock. Ain't that something?
Wow, it's still early over there.
Yes.
Well, you keep throwing shade at Picasso, but he's one of my heroes because what I love about his work is he wasn't a slave to one style.
No.
Several famous artists, when they get recognized for a style, they stay with it until the end. But
Yeah.
Picasso, he changed. He went through Cubism. He went through Surrealism. He went through period, his blue period, his rose period. I mean, he was continually reinventing himself. And I feel that, for me, most sculptors are object makers. And I think of myself as an idea maker. Although the ideas end up manifesting themselves as objects, I think it's the strength of the idea that makes the object work.
Mm-hmm. It's like, say, if it's not that I don't see talent in Picasso, but to me, it's like a street rod or an original car. There's a well, as a car salesman analogy, uh, there's an ass for every seat. There's something different. Uh, I admire a great street rod, the workmanship that goes into it, but it just doesn't trip my trigger like an original automobile. And for some reason, Picasso's work, I can see the skill and talent, but it just doesn't do anything for me. Your work does. I don't know, I don't know what that says, but that's what art does. It's something for everybody. Something
Yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
Well, that you touched on the on public art being a community endeavor, but it's also very divisive because when you put a piece of art in public, you're going to get contrasting views no matter what. I mean, nothing is 100% positive. So you have detractors and you have supporters, and it's difficult sometimes to deal with. But I've been very fortunate in that most of my work has been well received.
Yes.
But applying for opportunities is always difficult because selection committees are a mixed bag of people from the community. There's people from the local legislature. There's teachers. There's businessmen. There's artists. And there's who knows who. And, are they the best arbiters of what should go up in public? Who's to say? Sometimes I think that blindfolding somebody and throwing a dart would probably achieve the same results. So it's a crapshoot, but usually the selection committees come out with a fairly good choice.
People always, there's contention in everything. And especially in our society today, people are looking for an excuse to be angry, upset. A lot of these people would cry if you hung them with a new rope, and they're going to just get upset. But generally, public art, I find, is a unifying, be it murals, sculpture. In general, there's always going to be detractors. There's always going to be people who just, let's face it, they just they live to complain and whine. That's just the nature of things.
Yeah, well, as time goes by, and I've had a lot of success in the public art domain, I've become more, I would say, playful or humorous or fun with my designs, which don't always go over well with juries because they're looking for something that's unfortunately like a corporate logo in 3D, something that to me is soulless. And, I'd like to make pieces that are more fun and, like I say, that's sometimes a hard sell to a jury. Like I just pitched a proposal to Sunrise, Florida, and they're two of the most, how can I put it, playful, childlike sculptures that I've ever designed, and they seemed extremely receptive to the ideas. But I haven't heard back from them yet, so the story remains open.
Speaking of stories, there's a film underway here, The Life and Work. What do we got going here, Don?
Well, there's a lot of video out there on my work. A lot of it was done by people who came into the studio and were interested, like young filmmakers in LA who made some short films, and also a news station out here in Florida, Bay News 9, Spectrum Bay News 9, was interested in my journey with Parkinson's, which unfortunately I'm suffering with. So they covered some of my procedures and sculptures. So I realized the power of video to get the message out there, and I financed like a short, I would call it like a portfolio piece about my work, my public work, that I could show to selection committees, and they could see the breadth of my work. And as people were watching it, I was getting feedback, and somebody said, you have so much work, and it's all crammed down into a 2-minute video. Well, I'd like to see a whole, like a biopic about your work. And I said, wow, that's a good idea. I never thought of doing that. And then I said, but that's expensive. And they came back and said, well, do a GoFundMe or a Patreon and try to get some money to put it together. So, that was another good idea. So I put together a GoFundMe, and unfortunately, I didn't reach the goal that I wanted to make the full film. So what I'm doing is I'm using the funds to make a trailer to hopefully inspire people to want to see the whole film. It's kind of the cart before the horse, making the trailer before the film. But that's the goal of the project as it stands now.
That sounds like something I would do. Buy a radiator cap and find a truck to put under.
That's a good analogy. That's what I'm doing.
I've got the link here, and then when we publish this and when I do a blog post, I'll make sure that link is there for folks who want to be a part of this project. It's a worthy goal, because I find in the fact that you're dealing with an illness as well, this is the kind of thing I think is needed. Inspiration. The whole idea is to build communities and to provide inspiration. You're accomplishing both with this.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be known as the artist with Parkinson's. I don't want to be defined by it. But it is, as much as I try to ignore it, it is a big part of how I operate. I have very limited facility, and I have to make use of the time of the day when I'm functional. And, I would like to inspire people, because I've found out that everybody is suffering with something.
Yes.
Unfortunately, mine is right out there to see because I'm shaking like a leaf. But everybody is dealing with something, and I hope that my accomplishments in art can inspire people to do what they love,
right,
in spite of the difficulties.
One of the greatest jobs I had, it didn't pay enough to quit the day job. In fact, the day job supported the writing habit. I was working as associate editor for Cars and Parts magazine. The short version, I was asked to do a monthly column, and I wrote called The Independent Thinker. And I profiled people that you had never heard of that transformed the auto industry. And that set me off down a rabbit hole when I discovered Ralph Teeter. Ralph Teeter was a prolific and diverse inventor, best known for cruise control.
Oh, wow.
But the most amazing thing about Mr. Teeter was that he'd been injured as a child in his father's machine shop. He'd been blind since the age of 5. And he invented, one reason he helped perfect the electric razor is because he wanted to shave himself.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I find that sent me down a whole rabbit hole of people who have issues, but they don't let that define them. They do things. They live life and they inspire people by doing that. And that's what you're accomplishing. Your art
Well,
inspires people and your life inspires people.
I hope so. I have people that inspire me, um, mostly artists that have disabilities. Mark DeSuvero is a sculptor who does monumental metal work all over the world. He's a A-lister, uh, and he crushed his spine in an elevator accident, moving some stuff with a moving metal with um, a freight elevator, and he hobbles around and crawls up his sculptures and welds even with his disability. And then there was Chuck Close, who was a painter. He died a few years ago, but there's some wonderful videos on Chuck. He had a neurological disease, and he painted with a paintbrush strapped to his wrist, and assistants and automatic easels that move around. If you see the videos, it's pretty impressive. But again, he was a world famous painter of faces. And on top of that, he had face blindness, which I'm not sure you're aware of what that is, but it's a syndrome. It originates in the brain, where you meet someone. I mean, it could be your wife or your kid, and then the next time you see them, you don't know who they are. And he painted gigantic faces with these made up of little abstract cubes. It's incredible work. But if these guys can do it, I can soldier on. That's my
Sure.
point.
This is the importance of this. This is what I try to do here. I never want this to be a gym show. The focus on pretty much everything I do is sharing America's story, inspiring people, and giving ideas, helping to build that sense of community. And like say, after I did that independent thinker column about Ralph Teeter and being the blind inventor of cruise control, it sent me down a whole rabbit hole. And I started finding stories about incredible people, like a fellow named Royal Rounds. I found he was a World War I veteran. He had been so shot up when they brought him off the battlefield, they just put him outside the hospital because they figured he was a hopeless cause. He lost 90% of his use of his left arm. He had been shot through the lung, everything. And he went on to incredible things. He patented vacuum radio tubes. He became a pilot and was flying the Hump in Burma in World War II.
Wow.
And he created a motorized home in the 1940s out of world surplus, welding and doing everything with basically one arm. A front wheel drive, 40-foot motorhome with radiant heating in the floor and air conditioning. Just astounding people that I discovered. And so I started going down that rabbit hole.
You've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, Jim.
You can't, and you can't go through the years that you and I've gone through. Life. If you have any curiosity at all, you're going to go down rabbit holes.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about you. You're a great self-promoter. I see you everywhere. The bronze sculpture of you and all the things that you do. I mean, I see you everywhere, and I really admire it.
Well, thank you.
When people ask me, like I said to my friends, I'm doing a podcast, Coffee with Jim, and they say, "Who's Jim?" And the way I describe you, I don't know if you like this or not. I say he's kind of the Anthony Bourdain of everything Route 66.
Call me anything but late for dinner. The sculpture downtown that Kingman Main Street did, I was very, very honored and humbled by that. But it was like attending my own funeral. People who wouldn't pee on me if I was on fire, and that look for a rope and a tall tree when I walk in the room were singing my praises. It was bizarre. I'm grateful, but I wish they would have waited till I was dead. That's just... hey, I've got a question. Professor Nolan Stoltz was asking about the Art Hub, how that worked. What did you have to provide, and how did that program work?
Yeah, that was an interesting program. It was an artist in residence program offered through a clearinghouse website. I don't remember what it was, but they listed artist in residence programs all over the world. And I was kind of itching to get out of LA and take a little bit of a hiatus somewhere. And I always loved the desert. I mean, I have been a desert rat since I was out of high school, traveling through the Mojave and the Anza Borrego and what have you. So I saw the listing for Art Hub, and what they provided was a room and a studio space. You had to provide your own food, and it was for a period of 3 months. So I applied, and it was being run by Seth Angle, and his parents. I'm sure you know they're kind of a big deal in Kingman. The Angles, they have what is it, a furniture store or a construction company?
They have both. Construction's their big one. They're building housing developments and things of that nature.
Right. Well, they're the ones who renovated the building that Art Hub was in. It was really quite beautiful. The rooms were like the first floor. Yeah, I think it used to be a bank because there was a big walk-in safe on the first floor, and it was converted to a studio, which was really nice. And then the second floor was the kitchen and bedrooms. And each artist, I think there were about 4 or 5 artists from all over the world. When I was there was a woman from the Ukraine, and we each had our own bedroom and a shared 1 or 2 shared bathrooms, and it was a really great experience. It was like a complete change in lifestyle coming from LA, and I thrived in it. I mean, I thought it was great. The one thing that was difficult for me was I was, as you know, a welder and a metal worker, and I was thrust into a studio that was 4 walls and a wooden floor, literally nothing to work with. So that's why I sort of worked in that assemblage technique, which involved collecting objects from the town and screwing them onto a wooden armature. So I had to adapt not only physically, socially, and emotionally, but work-wise too. So it was a good experience. But like I say, I met some fascinating people in Kingman. There was Jan Elway, who I'm still friends with now. She has since moved out of Kingman. And of course, I met you there, Jim, which was an interesting confluence. And yeah, that's basically the story of art. Oh, art. Well, what happened was I got so enamored with it, and I was working on the running hare, and my 3 months residency was up. In other words, I was going to be booted out and replaced, and I asked them if I could stay for another 3 months, and they said sure. So that was nice. So I ended up staying 6 months in Kingman.
It kind of grows on you. I've been out here so long. I'm one of the dry roasted nuts. I live here on purpose. It's a good town. It's got a good sense of community, and there's a lot worse probably so the person could live.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I love the desert. I would take a daily walk through the desert, just outside of town, up the hill, and take some more extended walks on the weekend. And I would find things in the desert, find fascinating. I found tools like working reciprocal saws and things like that under a cactus in the middle of the desert. It was crazy, but I loved it. And you're close to the Grand Canyon and Oatman and all those fascinating little towns. I mean, it was great.
Oatman's a hoot.
Oh, it is.
Isn't it nice when people go to Oatman? I always tell them it's just nice to see that not all the asses are in Washington.
I had sort of a little video blog going at the time, and I posted one video of two burros fighting, and they were biting each other and flipping around and stuff like that. And it got a lot of hits, but it's just fascinating.
It is. Oatman is a quirky town, and there's a little short version, kind of a sidetrack, but you never want to take yourself too seriously. And every once in a while, you need a refresher course in why you shouldn't take yourself seriously. And Oatman, the mayor, Walter the mayor, is very, very famous. He's an ass. He's probably the most honest politician I've ever met. He's an ass and doesn't claim to be anything different. They put different hats on Walter. He's a burro. And I was doing a book signing at a store up there in Oatman, and they asked if they could take pictures of me and Walter. Walter has the free reign of the stores and whatnot. There's Walter and his Uncle Sam hat, and I got a picture with Walter. And when I got home, my wife looked up Walter. We didn't know much about Walter, and here I am thinking I was doing well with 8,000 followers on Facebook. Walter had 240,000. So the moral of the story is I'm not as big an ass as I thought I was. Don,
rim shot.
I have appreciated this conversation immensely. And we'll get this published. We'll get links to your website as well as your GoFundMe. We'll get that up on the blog post this week, next few days. I really appreciate this. I just admire your work, but I also find you very inspirational. And I want to encourage, we've got some folks here. We get frustrated about how do we build a sense of community. Sometimes it feels like we're pushing a wheelbarrow full of overweight people up a hill with a flat tire, and we get exhausted trying to get that sense of community. And I think maybe you've given people ideas on how we can do that, and that's also important. So I'm really appreciative of this.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to be on the show. It's always great to speak to you, whether on a podcast or in person or over some barbecue like we used to do. It's always great to get new avenues of publicity. And I appreciate the links you put up, and I appreciate the time you've taken.
Oh, you bet. I enjoyed doing this immensely. I never wanted this to be a gym show. It's about the people. It really is. It's good to talk to you. We don't talk often enough. I was just talking to Professor Stoltz here that the Art Hub is still there, but it's now part of the Kingman Center for Arts. I think right. It is. We've got a strong, surprisingly strong arts community here in Kingman. The old theater downtown was just renovated by a nonprofit, and that just opened a few months ago as a performing arts center. They're going to be doing classic cinema there. We've got a lot of galleries now downtown that have opened. You mentioned hiking here. They have put in a incredible series of hiking trails and mountain bike trails through the canyons, scenic overlooks. Yeah, we're actually doing things here. It's just we're an overnight success. 120 years in the making. But we're doing it. We're doing it. We're moving it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating place. I mean, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to come to Kingman, live there for a period of time, meet the people, get inspiration, and it was a very valuable experience for me. I'm glad I met people like you and like Jan and like Scott, who helped me progress as an artist.
Don, I want to thank you again for doing this. We're always it's always great to talk to fun and inspirational people, and you have an enthusiasm that's infectious, and I like that. Uh, Next week, you're going to find this of interest. We're going to talk to a fella, Joey Medea. This guy is. I really have trouble finding words for Joey. He's exciting. He's a chameleon. He's a screenwriter, a director, actor, a playwright, novelist. Uh, he builds interesting historic based escape rooms in Ireland and different places. He has a popular program about UFOs, extraterrestrial stuff.
Wow.
Now he's just immersed himself in the life of Cyrus Avery, the so-called father of Route 66. And for the centennial, he's going to be taking that on the road as a road show, uh, imitating and bringing Cyrus Avery to life. So that's kind of a different. Well, that's going to be different. Let's just go with that. That'll be different.
Well, it sounds great. I'll be sure to tune in. I'm interested in all those things.
Sounds good, Don. I want to thank everybody who joined us today, and we talk about building a sense of community. And we got some folks that we've hooked up with that help support the program, and all of them share our passion for building a sense of community and helping us tell people where to go. That's something else we love to do. And examples would be David Brenner out at the Roadrunner Lodge in Tucumcari, New Mexico. That building was, I thought, I just wouldn't have. And he took an absolute derelict, condemned building, and he's turned it into a destination, an absolute living, breathing 1960s time capsule. The attention to detail is astounding. Tiki rooms and whatnot. And that has been a catalyst for a lot of development in Tucumcari. It's gotten a lot of people to come to town on a trip, and they start seeing Tucumcari in a different manner. Another is Connie Eccles out at Cuba, Missouri. Cuba, Missouri it's a kind of a Norman Rockwell kind of town, and it's just neat. But Connie Eccles and Charlie, Reva, and some others, they took the old Wagon Wheel Motel, and for lack of a better word, it was one step away from being a filming location for Breaking Bad. It was not a pretty picture, and they gave it a new lease on life. They totally transformed this, and it's the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. But
Wow,
that played that. What's that?
I was going to say, you're reminding me of my trip to Winslow, Arizona.
Yes.
Which that guy and his wife, she's a painter. They redid. I think it's called La Posada Hotel.
Yes.
And her paintings are all over in all the rooms, and it's the theme. I mean, that was a shock coming across that. And like you were saying, it spawned more development. There was a gentleman, I forget his name, but he took, I think it was called the Snowdrift building. They made Snowdrift like Crisco oil there. And he kept the name Snowdrift, but he reformed the building. He totally reconstructed it to be his studio. And he's got some fabulous work there. And it's become sort of an off the offbeat artist destination.
Yes. I'm trying to, I've been reaching out. I've been talking to Alan off and on. I haven't talked to him lately, but Alan Affelt and his wife, Tina, she's the artist. They really quite a story. The La Posada, for those who don't know, it was a Harvey House hotel. And then it was closed. Then the railroad gutted it, turned it
Yeah.
into offices. And then they gutted it again, and they were going to demolish it
Yep.
when Allen got the property. And it was an uphill battle to restore this. He even had to run for mayor in Winslow to get the political clout to make this happen. But now he's bought a garage across the street, turned that into an art hub type facility. He's put in a heritage garden to raise vegetables for the restaurant there at the La Posada. He has the largest private solar field in Arizona now to help power the hotel. And he's gone on to other projects. He took on the Castaneda Hotel in Las Vegas, New Mexico. This is a massive, one of the oldest Harvey House hotels. It has a connection to Teddy Roosevelt. The Rough Riders reunion was held there, but it was empty for 70 years. And he's now renovated that property, turned his attention to the 1882 Plaza Hotel in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and given that a new lease on life. We're hoping to get him on here to talk to him soon, because I think that's another one we need to hear from as far as inspiration, frustration, blending art with historic preservation, and how this can totally ignite a passion in a community, create a sense of community purpose.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job. Like I didn't know anything about it, but when I came across it, I was so surprised and so enthused at the scale of the project that he undertook, and also the artwork that his wife produced. I mean, she was prolific. There's massive paintings in some of the rooms with hundreds of figures in them, recognizable figures. And they were fascinating. It was great talking to her and seeing how she works and touring the hotel. But people like that are real gems.
Yes, they are. And there's so many like yourself, and Bob Waldmeyer, and there's quite a list of artists that have made real differences in communities. And there's a whole bunch of them that don't get the recognition they deserve. And we're trying to fix that.
Yeah, well, I would love to do another project for Kingman and for Route 66 in another town. I mean, the idea of the hare was taken from when I took my little walks in the desert every morning. I would see those huge jackrabbits, and like back on the East Coast, we have rabbits, cottontail rabbit, but these jackrabbits, they're of a different breed. I mean, they're huge with long front legs and very large ears. And I was so taken aback, and I liked the idea of anthropomorphizing the rabbit into a human form. And he's holding a flower, which is a symbol to be nice, be kind, and, love your fellow man.
Well, I'm going to close this out with an idea. I'm going to share this with you, and I'll close this out for today. But I'll send you a link to Cuba, Missouri. Missouri's Mural City. They're on Route 66. They have a connection to the Ozarks. There's a trail there. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's they've got some sculpture. Public art is a big part of Cuba. But you mentioned doing something else on Route 66. Cuba is an art community. They have a real strong sculpture and murals. But next year is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. And it's the 250th anniversary of the United States. I bet you that'll spark some ideas.
Yeah.
Don, everyone who joined us this morning, I really want to thank you. It's kind of I had somebody describe this program as a virtual diner where folks get together on Sunday, and I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, me too.
We'll be doing this again next week, and we'll visit with Joey Medea. And we got some other interesting folks coming down the pike here. As soon as I can get everything confirmed, we'll have it up on the Jim Hinckley's America website. And, we'll get this published later today. Please share this with your friends and anybody that's looking to do some, do something interesting. Make a difference in the world, shall we say, for the better. Don, until we meet again, my friends, I will bid you adios, and we will send this off with some road trip inspiring music from my good friends Joe and Woody and all the boys of the road crew over in Nashville.
Okay, thank you for having me on the show. It was really a blast.
Thank you, Don.
Enjoyed it.
My friends, via con Dios. Until next week.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.